Well, I think first you start with your own evaluations and go from there. Uh, we've talked about some things today. In fact, we had a very good meeting earlier. And one of the things that we talked about was the four options we have on the roster, in free agency, in the draft, and potential trades. And you got to look at all avenues. And then you've got to kind of predict and look at which ones intrigue you, and then go from there.
Is acquiring both a young guy and a veteran out of the question at this point?
No, nothing's out of the question.
I would just echo what Coach said and tell you that we've started the process. We've been talking about this for several months now and how we move forward. But again, every avenue, uncover every stone. We'll look at every situation out there and try to find the right guy.
Sean, again, we're both staying on the quarterback. There are teams that have been aggressive over the years looking to go up. San Francisco did it last year, Kansas City with Mahomes, when they felt they had that roster in a certain spot. Do you feel this roster is in a spot where we can be aggressive going after a guy if we had to, if it presents a trade like that?
We feel very good about our roster. We do. We like the things that we've done, and we like the guys that we have. We feel there are a couple spots that we most certainly do feel we need to upgrade, but just a few. And so, again, putting ourselves in the right type of situation, I think is what we're doing.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I would agree with that. Selectively aggressive, making the right decision, when to be aggressive, but certainly there'll come a time when there's time to do that.
Sam Fournier with the Washington Post. I believe everyone in the front office that you guys have has really acquired a franchise quarterback and has been into the draft with a #1 overall pick. How would you approach something like that, not having obviously that level of draft capital at least right now?
Well, I would tell you this, having the #1 pick is, obviously helpful in that situation, but you still have to pick the right guy. The year that we picked Stafford, Sanchez was out there, Mark Sanchez was out there, Freeman was out there. There were other options, options in free agency. We talked through a lot of different options and how to move forward before we decided to use that pick on Matthew. And we had the opportunity to trade back. So we had the opportunity to trade back and maybe take one of those other guys, and maybe Matthew would have still been there. So, where you're picking isn't that important. As you see, every year guys go 10, 11, elsewhere other than the first overall pick, end up being pretty good quarterbacks.
I don't disagree. To me, it's not just about where you pick, but who you pick. And that's just as important. So, again, as we go through this process, guys, we're going to evaluate and we're going to look at, our options.
Last year when you chased after Matt Stafford and the trade market, you wanted to hold on to your assets because it felt like you're still building. Is the roster in a better place now where you could be more aggressive in terms of draft capital?
I believe it is. I do. I mean, again, I'm optimistic about us. I think, we've got some good football players in the right positions. And, as we go forward, again, the decision we make will be based on, what we believe is best for us.
And then you said the other day that you didn't anticipate any staff changes. You still feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, again, guys, it's something I'm not going to talk about.
Ben Standing with The Athletic. Ron, as part of your evaluation, have you, or do you expect to speak to Dan and Tanya Snyder? And if so, what do you suspect the nature of the conversation will be?
Well, I most certainly do, because again, one of the things that you always do is you always prepare a review. You speak about your players, speak about your staff, speak about the season, and then speak about the plan going forward. And that's really what I anticipate doing with the ownership. At the end of the day, it's their football team, and they have the right to know and understand, where we are, what happened, and what we intend to do to keep things going in the right direction.
So you haven't talked to them today?
No. Again, this is about, again, going through the process of evaluations right now for us, and at the appropriate time, I will visit with them.
And for you, this is kind of 2 years that you've been not just the head coach, but running the football operations. What have you learned that maybe you didn't know when you started, or things maybe something you appreciated more now that you've done it?
Well, the first thing you appreciate is the work that our personnel department does, because they for the most part, do set the table. They do a lot of work. Martin and his crew have been tremendous, especially in light of the COVID situation we went through. One of the things that you can really truly point to and applaud them on was helping us with the depth at offensive line. because again, being able to protect the quarterback, being able to run the football, I think is very important. And we were able to continue to do that and do it well. I mean, when you finish the season and you see that your group is ranked in the top 10, considering we played with a fourth center. At one time, we used a fifth guard. We used I think it was a fourth tackle. You say that's a pretty good job. And so just knowing that the personnel department has done that type of work for us in terms of helping to set the table, I think that's something that you really get a fond appreciation for. Because if you have to try and do all those types of things by yourself, it's not going to get done. So that's probably the biggest thing, that I really do appreciate.
Pete Bailey with NBC Sports Washington. You talk about the 4 QB options. Is the rookie option less appealing because you're going to year 3? You talk about wanting to take that big step, and maybe you would have to wait for a rookie to grow. And do you feel like you can go with a rookie considering where you are in this rebound?
Well, as we go through the process, if we believe that's the best option, absolutely. But again, we're going to do what we believe is best for the football team going forward. And whether it is a rookie quarterback or free agent quarterback or quarterback on the roster or trade, yeah, we're going to look at everything and then make the decision.
Jacob Finley, NBC Sports Washington. Question for Martin. Your first year as GM here, how would you evaluate kind of the acquisition process of players, draft, free agency, all of it?
Yeah, well, it was my first year here. It was also Marty's first year here. Eric was very instrumental in everything that we did, Eric Stokes, Chris Polian. So we've got a great group that's working together to make these things happen. But in terms of, starting the process, getting here, we jumped right in, as far as evaluating our team, evaluating other players in free agency and the draft. The first couple of months here, that's all that we did as a staff. So I think we grew a lot through that process, got to know each other quite a bit, and I think we're working really well together right now.
And then Ron, just as the big boss, how do you feel your new team on the front office side performed the first year?
I thought they were, like I said, I really appreciate their efforts and what they did. I, felt good about, about the fact that as we went through this season and we endured the situations we had, we were able to field a good team, competitive team, a group of guys that went out and played hard to the end. I mean, some things you just can't foresee, but for the most part, being able to stay competitive, I think was, an important thing for us. And so I really appreciate what they did.
David Olson with The Athletic. Ron, obviously, we don't know with clarity who's going to be here and who's not next season. Do you think your offensive line, the people you know will be back next year, is to the point where it could potentially lead, carry an offense, no matter who the quarterback is, no matter who the running backs or receivers are?
I think it's sound. I really do. I think it's very sound, and it probably could. In light of a lot of things that happen, and as I said, playing with the guys that basically were your fourth option, you feel pretty good about it. And I don't think it would be just them alone. I think the running backs will have something to say about it. I think tight end is a position that can be very good for us if we're healthy. To me, it's really about the unit and the team itself. If we are, doing some good things well, if we're running the ball well, and everybody's doing their job, and by that I mean not just the offensive line blocking people at the tight end involved with it, the wide receivers blocking downfield, running it, we could run it very effectively. One of the things that we noticed, and one of the things that I had our analytics guy look at, was during that 4-game stretch, from Tampa to Seattle, or excuse me, to Vegas, those 4 wins. The thing that was most impressive to me, that stood out the most, was we ran the ball 6 more times a game than we normally do on average. And during that period, we obviously gained more yards. We had shorter third down situations. And when you watch those tapes and you watch some of those runs we had, it was exactly that. It wasn't just the offensive line moving people out of the way. It was the tight ends involved in the running game. It was the wide receivers blocking, but it was the runners. And so that made things better for us. So if we can get have the guys that we have and get those guys back and get those guys going again and continue to watch Antonio develop, get a healthy JD out there, and really, keep things rolling. We have a very good chance. I like our guys, I do, and I think it could, not just them, but just the fact that playing a physical brand of football speaks well to what we can be. I think it speaks more volumes because it helps. It takes a lot of pressure off the quarterback having to do things. It takes a lot of pressure off the defense because it keeps them off the field. I mean, if you figure 6 plays is going to average about 2.5 minutes, 6 running plays, that's 2.5 less minutes that the other opponent's offense will be out there, and your defense will be on the bench resting.
This may be, both of you may have to answer this. Do you have plans to bring in either acting or hire a new athletic trainer? And if it's from within, is someone going to, promote someone from within to handle the offseason?
No, that's a fair question because we most certainly are looking at those options right there. Those things that we have to consider going forward. I mean, it's been a very difficult situation. We hired Greg Smith, who obviously worked at one point for the Capitals and did a great job coming in to help us. But that was a temporary thing. We brought in a couple of interns that had worked with us to help add some more bodies to it, and it worked effectively. Was it ideal? No. But going forward, we most certainly have to look at that, and we will, and we'll address it because, again, we'll have the combine coming up very shortly, and we're going to have evaluations go through all that process. So we'll see what's in store for us, but it is most certainly something that we are working towards.
Steve Weiner, Associated Press, just follow on that. Michael Lane's status is still administrative.
Yep.
Correct. And on the brand share topic, obviously you guys have been on the franchise tag twice. What are the complexities of kind of working out a long-term deal with a player who's clearly valuable to your team, but is going to come at a significant long-term cost?
Yeah, well, Brandon is an outstanding player. 7 years here, 5 Pro Bowls. I mean, you can't replace that kind of production. Very, very respected in the locker room, and it's been great getting to know him. It's my first year here, being around him and seeing his work ethic. But I think our fans should know we've made every effort to get something done. We'll continue to work on that. Last year, we made him an offer to be the highest-paid offensive guard in the history of the National Football League, and we'll keep that dialogue going, and we'll see where things go.
I guess your message to your team yesterday, obviously disappointment not going back to the postseason, but now you're kind of entering this new rebrand, new transition. What was your main message that heading to the offseason?
Was really about going forward. Once February 2nd comes and everybody knows what happens, 2-2-2-2-2-2, 0-2, is that we most certainly are going to go forward. I don't want to get pulled backwards. This is a chance for us to step beyond the shadow of what we've had to deal with and really start afresh, start new. It'll be an opportunity. We obviously are changing our name. We'll have our name out there. But what we're also doing is, new uniforms, which are pretty cool. I think you guys are going to appreciate them. I think the fans will appreciate them. And, it really is, to me, an opportunity. And people, it's been difficult. But at the same time, it's an opportunity to go forward, and that's what I want. I want us to be able to step into a new light and create a new opportunity for our guys as a football team to go forward.
The defensive line, this past season, what was missing? What wasn't working? What did you see that wasn't quite clicking in your mind? If you're able to separate, COVID injuries, all that stuff, just pure football, what wasn't working, you think?
Well, initially, I think if you want to talk about pure football, I think the one thing was expectations. Everybody's expectations across the board, players included, mine, coaches, fans, everybody's, was probably a little bit out of whack. I think one of the biggest things that we try to do was we try to show what we're capable of and who we are instead of trying to just go out and play football the way we're supposed to. I thought guys, and I talked about this, was that there were some things that we were doing we weren't supposed to do. We were popping gaps and we were trying to make plays instead of staying home and just knowing the play doesn't care who makes it. If you're where you're supposed to be, you make your play. And that's probably the biggest thing early on. And I think as the season wore on, as we started to lose pieces, that was a little bit difficult. But we had a nice stretch again where as a team we played the way you're supposed to. There was a lot of good things that were happening. We were effective as an offense running the ball, and we were effective as a defense getting after the quarterback. And probably the biggest thing and when you look at the statistics, was our third down production during that stretch. When we were good on third down on both sides of the ball, we were very effective. When we weren't good on third downs on both sides of the ball, we struggled. And that's one of the things that when you do look at the numbers, the analytics, that stood out. That truly stood out, was that the third down efficiency is something we got to get better at, and that can be helped by how you play your first and second downs as well.
Do you feel like all the players, coaches are on the same page at this point with
Oh, yeah.
And do you still view that group as kind of
Yeah.
the crux of the?
I do, because when you look at what happens and what can happen, everything starts up front, first and foremost. You know, if we're playing downhill and into our gaps, and we're doing the things that we're supposed to, there's really no place to run. I mean, I know Sunday was a little different kind of game, but that game was emblematic of us, you know, being able to slow them down and shut the run down. And there were a couple plays that stood out where they bounced it outside and picked up a nice run, you know, 8 yards, 9 yards, whatever it was. And a big part of it was because the linebacker didn't flow and get outside like he was supposed to. Another time it was the end was supposed to set the edge and he fell back inside. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing more than anything else. And sometimes it's never just one guy. And that's the thing that's, you know, that's tough is if it's one guy, it's easy because you can replace him. But if it's a mixture, you know, one guy here, that's a little different. That's a little difficult to work on.
Going back to the quarterbacks for another minute, there's been a lot of talk around the league about guys who may be available. Do you think it'll be there'll be as many guys changing teams as what the narrative seems to be right now? And if so, why are there more quarterbacks maybe who teams are willing to move on from in the past in the parts that
That's tough to say. I mean, you just, you know, we're gonna look at everything, to be honest. But the thing that we don't know is who will be available. You're gonna have to look at it, and if you have any inkling or thought, yeah, you're gonna go through in your mind, go through the process, and you know, and see if that's a viable entity, you know, a viable option. So we'll see.
And then I guess to follow up on that too, with one of the options, of course, is going to get a better quarterback and have a lot of money. How much do you look at if you do that, does it prohibit you from making other moves to keep certain guys on the roster?
Those are all key decisions, and they're all tied together, and one decision leads to another one, you know. So we have to weigh all of that in the process. So as Coach mentioned, there are 4 different avenues we have to go through in terms of looking at which quarterback is the best one for us, but we also have to look at how that affects the rest of the team.
Ron said this is stay on the quarterback. When you talked in the past, or recently, about your third year in Carolina is when you guys had a big jump. Obviously, you had a quarterback in place. You also said, you know, the rookie, there's got to be maybe some patience there. How do you sort of square that? Where on the one hand, you could potentially take a big leap if you get a better, but on the other hand, you want patience. It seems like that's sort of two different views of how this.
Right. Well, the big difference being in Carolina, when I got there, you know, the attitude was, if we're going to take a quarterback early, we had to make sure the offensive line could protect him, and we had enough playmakers around him. And we were very fortunate with the playmakers to begin with. You know, when you have Steve Smith and D'Angelo Williams, Jonathan Stewart as a tandem running backs, and Greg Olson and Jeremy Shockey at tight end. You know, now the next question is, do you have enough guys up front? And we did. I mean, we had an all-pro at left tackle. We had Ryan Khalil at center. You know, we had Travell Wharton at guard. I mean, guys that have played a lot. So we were able to protect him. And lo and behold, that year he becomes NFL Rookie of the Year and broke all the rookie passing records that Peyton Manning had set at one time. And so, you know, having that, you felt pretty good about playing a rookie. I feel we have a pretty good nucleus right here that if we did do that with a rookie, I wouldn't be afraid to play him. You know, because you're bringing him here for one reason, that's to play. If you draft him, are you guys going to be patient enough to give me 2 seasons? Are you guys going to be patient enough if I don't play him? So if we do that, we're doing that to play him. I'm not doing it to have him wait, because again, it is about, like I said, to me, the third season, you know, is when you take another step. You know, and hopefully we've done the things with the other positions that would warrant us finding the guy to put in and get ready to roll. You know, whether it comes from one of those 4 avenues or not, that's the important thing that we have to decide on.
So the point of patience, regardless of like anybody outside the building thinks, you're the one making the call, and for you obviously
We did win a division, though. Okay, understand that. Winning is winning. I don't care if it's, I don't apologize for the record.
To that end, this question is, what is your level of patience? Because obviously you want to get this thing turned around for this organization, but also
Right.
care for yourself. So what's your level of patience with all this, regardless of what anybody else thinks?
I think it'll be appropriate. When I need to be patient, I'll be patient. When I need to get on them, I need to get on them. I mean, I can't tell you what it's going to be because I know what my expectations are.
One of the veteran quarterbacks expected to be available is Deshaun Watson. If you
We
were to-
can't talk about players on other rosters, just to be fair. But we're going to explore all avenues.
Generally though, when a guy has character concerns like that, what kind of due diligence do you guys do as an organization?
Well, then we most certainly will do our due diligence, if that's the case. I mean, that's the thing that we have to do more so than anything else is really take a look at all those situations, circumstances, and really kind of go through the process. Obviously, we'd have to find out what the league's going on and saying with things and situations like that. It'd be no different than any other position that we've gone through. We'll go through, a very diligent process. I know Martin and his group will most certainly do that. Because when it does come to it, these are the guys that really handle the investigations for us.
Does the culture you're trying to build and where this organization is going, and then kind of some of the things floating around it, make a player like that maybe more risky because it could set back whatever you're trying to establish here off the field and then in the building?
I don't know, because again, you got to understand what the circumstances are, and to look at certain situations, certain circumstances, you'd like to hope that your culture inside is strong enough to put their arm around people and help them get things going in the right direction too. So we'll see. I mean, again, it's every avenue, guys. We'll cross those bridges as we get to them.
You mentioned something about patience. Are you going to give us 2 seasons? Do you feel that there's more urgency for, just generally these days, for a young quarterback to either
Oh, yeah.
start and look like the franchise guy immediately?
And I said this, probably think about a month ago or something like that, but the urgency to play first rounders, period, and even second rounders and third rounders has changed. From when I played, from Martin played, guys that got picked in the first round back in the day, you sat, you didn't necessarily play. There was a great player that played here that I was drafted with in Chicago, Wilbur Marshall. And Wilbur came in and all through OTA, or we didn't have OTAs back then, all through minicamp and training camp, his nickname was Phenom. He was unbelievable. But he didn't start because there was no need or no pressure to start him. And he didn't get his opportunity to play until the Super Bowl year, and then he became a full-time starter, and then obviously ends up here. So that urgency has changed. Now when you take guys in the first round, the urgency is to get them on the field because there's other ramifications and implications involved, and that's got a lot to do with the salary cap, first of all, because when you draft guys, you got to play them because you've got to take some pressure off of that. But then I think expectations have gone way through the roof, like for whatever reason. And I think that's also part of why you see so many guys not have as much success as they used to in the past, because they're not getting the initial formal training that we used to get. I mean, back then it was, you were taught, you were trained, you learned, and then you played. Now, the guys get drafted and they're thrown right into the mix of things, and the expectations go crazy. And, are those fair? I don't know. I mean, back then they weren't fair. Today they might be different, and it's a completely different game. Also, that's the other thing. And so, that's one of the things that I struggle with, and I know how people feel about our first round pick this past season. And I don't think those are fair. He's a young man that again, if you look at where he came from, he had 1 full year as a starter. So this was his 2nd year as a starter, getting opportunities to compete and play, and went out there and did the best he could. And we had to learn him and understand him. And and you guys heard what I've said the last couple of weeks is that with a true Mike in there, with David Mayo playing that position, not only did you see him play well, but you saw Cole play even better. And that to me is exciting. We learned something. And again, losing John Bostic when we did really stood out, and it showed us now just how important the group is. And I get it, and I'll get criticized for saying what I just said, but you know what? That's okay. But that's how I feel. I feel that if we could all settle down with the expectations and just give people opportunities, shoot, we may get surprised.
How do you balance that as a coach to continue to help the players develop while also
No, because that's a great question, Nikki, because it's tough, because I get it. I mean, this area is hungry for a winner. They want a winner, and I want to win. I want this. That's why we played Sunday, to win, to show these folks that we care about winning. Show these folks these guys are going to show up and play hard. They're not going to take a dive. Man, they had something to play for. They had two guys do something that was pretty special, rush for 1,000 yards and be a 1,000-yard receiver. I mean, that's pretty doggone good. And so, just wanted to make sure that they understand that we're trying to do the best we can. And we will continue to fight and compete, because to me, that's important. It really is, because this fan base, and again, I've alluded to it, and Martin can tell you because he was here. He knows what it's like. We know what it's like when these guys are successful on the football field. They'll come out in droves. That's why the hard part is to balance, is to find where that fine line is of putting guys out there and, quote unquote, throwing them to the wolves. That was just a little, All right.
So, Ron, sticking on Jenkins, going into his second year, how does his rookie year kind of impact the long-term vision for him?
Well, I think what it did for us in terms of that was getting a better feel and understanding for what we think he really can become. And that is, he can be an edge guy for us. And when I say edge, he can be an inside-outside linebacker. And trying to get it straight with the 3-4 and the 4-3. But in the 4-3, he could be an outside linebacker. He can be a guy that can go out in space and run. We see his ability to run and run through contact. He can run with running backs. He can run with tight ends. He's a run-through contact guy that can learn to get downhill and take those double teams off and help his D-line up front. That, I think, is where he belongs right now. Will he become an inside guy? A middle guy, there's a chance still, but I was pretty excited to watch him come in that situation and not have to, worry about trying to control or command anything. That's just another little thing. As far as, as far as playing the position, but I'm excited about it. I really am, about him and Cole, and potentially, if we can find the right inside guy, whether it be David or John or somebody else, to work with those young guys as they develop.
And so since he did think that he was going to be a three-down linebacker initially, how do you kind of reflect on the scouting process?
I will say this, and I talked about that, and I love that question as well, because, going through the process, the one thing that you really didn't get to do this time was really get to meet them. It's one thing to do it on Zoom, but be up front and really be able to communicate with them, watch them in person, their body language, ask the tough questions about, hey, why don't we talk about this coverage? Why don't we talk about how, draw this front up for me and explain this? Really get into the details. I think that's one of the hard parts with the way the process is, to really get a true feeling. I hope we get to do those things in person. I hope we get to, be in the same room and talk, and because one of the things that we do, and we've done it in the past, was, when we bring a prospect in, we sit them down and we have tape from when they played, and we have them explain that to us in detail, and if we have to, we have them draw stuff up for us. We ask them questions, we show them diagrams. Hey, can you, go ahead and show this, what you know from memory. I mean, there's a whole process that really you don't get a true feel for when you're not here interacting. And that, to me, is an important part, and hopefully we can get back to that as well.
Ron, I don't want to hog the conversation, but
That was admirable of you.
with regards to one young guy who has already been producing in Terry McLaurin.
Yes.
You asked the other day about his situation. You said something to evaluate the offseason. I guess it seems that the guy's pretty established at this point as one of the better receivers in the
Yes.
league. And I heard you on the radio today say you don't want to.
Oh, you guys are killing me. His agent's going to read your articles. He's going to listen to what I say. But Terry is somebody that we most certainly do want to make sure we get something worked out going forward. We want to do it the right way, and those are things that obviously are in discussions with us right now as we start preparing for the offseason.
Two big themes of the offseason last year were youth and speed. Do you guys feel like you hit a threshold with that where it doesn't have to be such emphasis, or would you like to continue adding those traits to the team this offseason?
I think those things are always important in this league, especially with the game the way it's being played now. Speed's going to be really important going forward. And you always want to get younger and healthier and faster. So that's not going to change for us going forward.
Ron, you talked about your time in Carolina. You brought a lot of people here from there. You're trying to replicate a lot of that, but are there things you're doing here differently that you talk about this being your second chance as a head coach? What are some things you differ compared to what you did with the
Well, one of the really, good things that I really do appreciate and being able to do is really kind of the personnel department, the way we have it structured right now. I really do appreciate that. I think it's, it's a collaborative effort. And as I said earlier, one thing that I really thought worked very well for us was really just the way these guys set the table. I think that's different from my initial experience. And pretty much a lot of things we've done pretty similar to. And the biggest difference obviously is not having, the clear-cut franchise quarterback yet. The one thing that we have done, though, is I think we've got a lot of pieces in place. There's a couple more that, in fact, we had met today, Marty, Eric, and myself and the coordinators have met and kind of went through the personnel initially, and we talked about, what we feel our biggest needs are, to kind of put them kind of on notice as to what to be looking for at these All-Star games, because these guys will be breaking pretty soon, and they'll head out to all the All-Star games, and they'll start their evaluation process with us. Also to give them a heads up as we start getting ready, to a little bit later in a couple of weeks as we start preparing for free agency, as to the positions that we're looking for special emphasis in. That's a little bit different, but at the same time, just trying to make sure that we all on the same page. That Martin and his guys know, what we're looking for, not just the position, but in the player and then the person. How important that quote unquote fit is to us.
Hey, Ron, when you look at your past team, the receivers in particular, obviously you get Logan back next year. If you re-sign Mayhew, that would help you guys. Curtis, if he's healthy. But do you look at it and say you still want to get a little bit more help out there, or do you think that Deami, if you see enough when you say he can develop into that, or do you still need somebody else out there to take some of the pressure off there?
Well, I do think, again, that Deami with that speed and what we saw the potential in the last few weeks is important. But the other guy, too, that, we got a little lost in the shuffle, but, had an opportunity to show again was Cam Sims as a young man that we got to look at and figure it out just to make sure. But, depending on what happens in free agency, if we lose a couple of guys, we'd have to bring another guy in as well. So we'll see what happens as far as that position goes. But it is a position we do like. We think it's a good position led by Terry. It does impact the rest of the offense because, again, getting Logan back out there and if, again, we can get Curtis back on the football field because, again, think about what he did in 2020. He was the most productive player per touch when he was in Carolina. And he's a guy that, I had drafted when I was there. Got a chance to watch him grow and develop and saw how explosive he was for us. And we know what his abilities are. We just, hopefully we can get him back here and healthy and ready to roll for us next season, and it'll help open things up. It'll take a lot of pressure off a lot of people as well.
You mentioned the impact of losing John Bostic earlier.
Yes.
Is it important for you guys to add a veteran to that group?
Well, I think, again, in that group, it's important to have the right guy there. And as we evaluate the process, that's one thing we're going to look for is make sure we have the right guy there.
It's one thing to say you're going to try to make a big aggressive move around the quarterback. Some things to get it 2 years ago. You guys tried for Amari Cooper reportedly. He didn't come here. Last year, Stafford, that didn't happen. What do you learn from those experiences to make you think if you do make a move, but other teams also want what makes you think what you must learn to actually get the guy?
Well, I think the biggest thing is obviously now knowing that, again, we feel comfortable with our pieces in place. If you're going to make any kind of move, then you've got to make sure you understand, what type of capital you're going to have to use, and there's a lot of things you have to consider. You have to consider draft picks, obviously, and then you have to consider current players. So there's a lot of things that, will go into these decisions. If there's somebody out there that we like enough to sit down and say, hey, look, we have to consider these picks and that capital in terms of core players, then we'll have to talk about that stuff. But, we're not going to, again, pull the trigger without really knowing the implications yet.
Again, both of you guys. have a good quarterback, he will make our receivers better. He will make our tight ends better. He will make our offensive line better. He will make our defense better. And therefore, if we get a good quarterback, the personnel we have here is good enough to win the day. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think if we're fortunate enough to find that guy, identify that guy, and have that guy on our football team, yes. And I think our personnel is more than good enough. Again, I'm optimistic. I believe in me. I believe in our team. I believe in, you know, what we can be. Yes, it does. And I'll point to the fact that a couple, you know, our first season here, when we moved some people around and Alex Smith came in, and we really saw that. We saw that development and growth. And that, to me, is what a good quarterback can do for you, is he elevates the play of the people around him. You know, he manages the games, he distributes the ball, and when needed, he'll make plays. And that's what you look for. That's what you got to have. To your question, yeah, that's exactly what he does.
That's the perfect answer. I mean, yeah, as we talked about, quarterback is the most important position on the field. You know, he is going to elevate the other players around him, and having a good quarterback helps your defense as well. So that's going to be a key decision. It's something we've been talking about for months now, and we will get it done.
And to your question earlier about the offensive line, that to me is hand in hand, because again, if you're running the ball successfully, you're also taking pressure off of him. You know, now the play action pass means a little bit more. The drop back passing, there's a little bit more time because a little bit more hesitancy up front. So again, you know, this being the ultimate game, team game, that's, you know, the impact of all that together. Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.